His solo leveling, Sung Jinwoo went from being the absolute weakest hunter in the world to being the absolute strongest being in the entire universe. We're going to be breaking down every form he's taken from the very beginning to his current pinnacle, E-Rank. Starting with E-Rank, Sung Jinwoo didn't like being a hunter at all, and did so purely out of necessity. His dad was missing for 10 years, and his mother was in a coma for 6 years. So he needed to take care of his little sister like he promised his mom. He probably could have done that much with a regular job, but he didn't really have any work skills, and his mom's year-round medical bills cost thousands each month. As a hunter on their payroll, he could rely on the association to cover her medical aid. Hunter ranks are given based on the amount of magic energy, or mana, a person possesses. The lowest average value for an E rank, which is the lowest rank, is about 70 to 100. Sung Jinwoo's mana value was a measly 10, so at least 10 times weaker than the weakest of the weakest. Aside from being just the slightest bit stronger and having his wounds heal a little faster, Sung Jinwoo was no different from a regular person. He is the only hunter to have been injured while raiding an E rank gate. It was unprecedented since at such a low level, teams don't even bother bringing a healer. Yet Sung Jinwoo ended up being hospitalized for a whole week. Apparently, the hunter's hospital even had a special seat reserved for him. Thanks to things like that, he became known in the profession for all the wrong reasons. While the S-rank hunter Choi Jung-in was known as the ultimate weapon, Sung Jinwoo was called the weakest weapon. Having him join your raiding party meant that it would be a pretty safe job since the association would never send him on a difficult raid. Not only was he made fun of, but the pay he regularly risked his life for was terrible. The best he could do was just barely kill a single E-rank monster while being backed by a gifted B-rank healer like Lee Joo-hee. And an essence stone from something like that is worth less than the price of a video game. The only reason he agreed to enter the double dungeon chamber was because his sister would be going to university in a few months, and he didn't have any money saved up. He gave up his own dream of going to school, and refused to have her go through the same thing. Despite his pitiful physicality, Sung Jinwoo always had reliable instincts, and even with the slaughter around him, Sung Jinwoo was able to maintain a level head and figure out the double dungeons mechanics. As someone who was always on the verge of death and continued to face it repeatedly, he was well suited to meet the challenge. Which is why, despite the architect's disagreement, the original Shadow Monarch, Ashborn, chose Sung Jinwoo to become a user of the system, a chance to gain his power and take his place. Reawakened. With the typical reawakening, a hunter suddenly gains more mana and raises through the ranks all at once. But for Sung Jinwoo, although he regained his lost limbs, he wasn't inherently any stronger. Yet the system gave him the one-of-a-kind ability to progressively do so. After making it out of the double dungeon, Sung Jinwoo vowed to become stronger and be more selfish. Even before his first solo raid, Sung Jinwoo possessed abilities that would make even the strongest hunters jealous. From just running a lot, he gained the skills Dash and Tenacity. One was a movement skill, and the other cut all damage by half whenever his stamina goes below 30%. Most hunters only gain skills from their awakening, but they could also be learned from runestones, which tend to be rare drops from A and S rank monsters. The best runestones could go for tens of millions of dollars. Yet Sung Jinwoo could gain skills for free. In fact, Sung Jinwoo's simple ability to heal himself while unconscious or sleeping is a type of regeneration that only monsters A rank and above have been known to possess. That sort of thing was believed to be impossible for a hunter. After only a week of Saitama-style exercise in the form of daily quests, Sung Jinwoo's entire body transformed. As his strength rose, his muscles and height changed too. Sung Jinwoo was roughly D rank throughout this stage. Unlike before, he could kill plenty of E-rank monsters. He did this so much that he even gained the title Slaughterer of Wolves, which gave all his stats a 40% boost when fighting against beast-type monsters. At first, his strength stat was 10, but at 30, he realized that it was much more than just a 3 times boost. The destructive power of his air-splitting fists continued to grow since he put all of his points into his strength stat. He realized that strength increases both power and speed. As it turns out, the agility stat actually makes an opponent's movement seem slower. With an agility of 25, E-rank monsters look like they were moving in slow motion, as if he were manipulating the flow of time itself. While from a target's perspective, he'd appear to be moving very quickly. Thanks to his perception stat, Sung Jinwoo became able to detect ominous auras, and more accurately gauge the strength of others. Not to mention his improved vision, even in the midst of darkness. C-Rank. The boss of the subway dungeon was a blue venom fang Kasaka. By defeating it and clearing the dungeon by his lonesome, Sung Jinwoo's power entered the range of a C-Rank hunter. In just one day, or more specifically, 9 hours, Sung Jinwoo went from level 1 to level 17. His go-to weapon became the C-Rank dagger, Poison Fang of Kasaka. With a base attack of 25, it could paralyze and cause bleeding, the latter being a 1% stamina reduction per second. He hadn't put any points into intelligence just yet, which is the stat that increases mana capacity and therefore has the most impact on hunter ranking. But with each level up, he gained points in each stat, so it was rising either way. Thanks to all this, he was able to one-shot a golem from afar by throwing a crummy weapon. Meanwhile, an entire group of hunters were helpless against it. When he joined Hwang Dong-suk and the Lizards for a C-Rank dungeon raid, he could sense that they had bad intentions, which was an indication of his rising perception stat. Once betrayed, Sung Jinwoo had to fight the dungeon boss spider by himself, something that only a B rank, or at least a peak C rank, would be able to survive. It would have been simple enough for a party of skilled hunters to defeat, but spiders are great at dealing with lone targets. It was definitely a tough fight for Sung Jinwoo, so him being peak C rank at the time would be the most accurate assessment. And thanks to winning the fight, he gained enough levels to pass the threshold. B rank. Moments after entering B rank, Sung Jinwoo easily killed an entire party of hunters. Among them were 5 C ranks and 3 D ranks, although in the anime version, there were only 6 instead of 8. His reward for doing so was a choice between a status recovery, 10 ability points, or a new skill. Keeping in mind the insane value of skills we mentioned earlier, he went with the last option and gained Bloodlust. For 100 mana, he can emit his murderous intent and cut the stats of several targets in half for a whole minute. And with his speed, a minute is a pretty long time. Later, Sung Jinwoo realized that thanks to his insane recovery skill, the same one that regrew his leg, he's immune to all poisonous substances. So he ingested the rare poison he got from killing Kasaka. Thanks to that, he now takes 20% less physical damage and was able to negate the usual reduction to strength that it causes. But despite only being about B rank, Sung Jinwoo was daring enough to use the key to the demon's castle, which allowed him to enter an S rank dungeon. Since he had a teleportation stone with him, he wanted to gauge his current power. Luckily, the first monster he saw was Cerberus, the A rank boss of the first floor. Sung Jinwoo previously invested some points into his sense stat to help him figure out whether he should fight or run from an enemy. Thanks to that, he could tell that the monster was strong, but not overwhelmingly so. Since it was a beast-type monster, Sung Jinwoo gained a 40% stat bonus against it. Cerberus was the first monster he fought that could use a skill. Rage doubled Cerberus' stats and caused it to no longer feel pain. This pretty much evened the playing field against Sung Jinwoo's stat boost. Once that happened, he was completely outclassed. He would have instantly died if it wasn't for Unyielding Spirit cutting all damage in half once his health went below 30%, and the 20% physical damage reduction from the poison he ate. He waited 3 minutes for Cerberus' buff to expire. Then he resorted to using a hidden quest reward to completely heal himself in the midst of battle. Because they were already so close, he pulled the same move he used against Kasaka and went ballistic until the thing was dead. If it wasn't for the favorable matchup, free status recovery, and a lack of intelligence from his opponent, there is no way Sung Jinwoo would have won. So for now, despite leveling up 4 times from it, he's still only at the high end of B rank instead of being an A rank. But he did gain an A rank item that became his highest ranking equipment. Gatekeeper's necklace added 20 points to his agility and sense stats. So now, they were both higher than his heavily invested strength stat. At this point, the goblins he used to fight tooth and nail against at E rank were too low level to give him any experience points at all. Sung Jinwoo felt evenly matched against the B-rank hunter, Kang Tashi. Kang had a preference towards fighting humans over monsters, and among B-rankers, he never lost in terms of speed. He was slightly faster than Sung Jinwoo, but thanks to a 30% bonus from his sprint skill, Jinwoo became fast enough to push Kang to his limits. Sung Jinwoo was surprised to see that Kang had the stealth skill, but his sense stat was high enough to make it utterly useless. Thanks to his superior skills and items, Sung Jinwoo won the fight. Instead of any level ups, he gained 5 stat points. He put 3 into strength and 2 into constitution. But more importantly, he was able to collect a runestone containing the stealth skill from Kang's body. Humans don't usually leave behind runestones, and Kang wasn't even A rank, so this was really strange. And a runestone containing stealth was unheard of, and therefore priceless, although it would probably go for millions on the public market and 10 times that on the black market. Regardless, Jinwoo used it and gained the ability to become invisible and hide traces of his existence. But the mana cost of 200 plus 10 per second was a bit steep for his current mana pool of 548, so he could only use it for a bit under 35 seconds. But with his other skills in the mix, it would be much less than that. But he still saw investing in intelligence as a waste, so he didn't bother improving it. So far, Sung Jinwoo had only killed other humans whenever the system gave him an urgent quest that demanded that he do so or die himself. But he changed that by feeding a human predator to a pack of hobgoblins. They ate the man alive, and Sung Jinwoo didn't so much as blink. At this point, not only was he well acquainted with death, but had accepted his role as its arbiter. From there, he killed the dungeon boss before it could even stand up and gained a level up. Clearing out the remaining hobgoblins gave him another level up. With that, Sung Jinwoo hit level 30 and broke into A rank. A rank. Sung Jinwoo's rise through A rank was meteoric. He was solo clearing dungeons at an unprecedented pace. It usually takes an A rank hunter at least 2 hours to solo clear a C rank dungeon. Meanwhile, Sung Jinwoo completed them in only 30 minutes. More than that, he was also clearing about 2 to 3 dungeons a day. In fact, he could have handled 4 to 5 dungeons a day, but was limited by their distance from one another. He didn't even have trouble against lizard men, and they're known as one of the toughest monsters you can find in a C rank dungeon. In just 4 days, he cleared 9 dungeons and gained 12 levels. With each level up, clearing C rank dungeons became easier. During this time, he learned 2 skills that solidified daggers as his go-to weapon type. Advanced Dagger Proficiency gave him a 33% boost to damage with them. Vital Stab allows him to hit an enemy's vitals with fatal damage at a cost of 70 mana. He actually used it unconsciously as his final attack against Kang. His sprint skill advanced to level 2, going from a 30% speed bonus to a 40% one. At this point, he could readily afford healing and mana potions from the system shop. And since his intelligence stat is still low, the latter was really useful. But although he could use them on others, he couldn't give them to others. The manhwa and anime versions really sped through this grinding portion, but ultimately, it brought Sung Jinwoo to the milestone level of 40, which triggered the class advancement quest. Within the dungeon it created, Sung Jinwoo defeated several armored warriors. They each specialized in a different stat and were equivalent to a well-organized and optimized party of hunters. They also had really high item drop rates, the most notable items being the high-level Knight's Breastplate and Gauntlet, which gave him a combined 10% boost to physical damage reduction. After just 6 hours of fighting, Sung Jinwoo gained 5 levels. From there, he gained even more from the boss room and penalty zone. He gained 2 levels from beating Igris and 4 levels from cutting down countless centipedes for 4 hours, while the hundreds of knights didn't yield any experience points. Igris's helmet was his first S-rank item. It came with a 15% bonus to physical damage reduction, plus 20 points to both strength and constitution. The helmet was so cool that a part of Sung Jinwoo wished it was visible on his body, which was a bit of a tease as to what he'll look like later on. He bought the B-rank dagger Nightkiller from the system shop. It had a base attack of 75 and gave a 25% damage bonus against heavily armored targets. He also gained several skills. Ruler's Hand lets him freely move things with his will, but the weight of his dagger was all he could manage. He learned Dagger Throw, and Vital Stab leveled up. He gained the class Necromancer, which then became Monarch of Shadows. This came along with 10 stat points, the title One Who Has Triumphed Over Adversity, and 2 class-specific skills. His title granted him a 1% stat boost for every 1% of health lost. Shadow Extraction lets him create shadow soldiers from corpses, while Shadow Storage lets him store them in his shadow. His limit was 30 shadow soldiers, so he kept 3 elite grade mages and 26 basic grade infantrymen. Igris was night grade and benefited from shadow strengthening, so he started at level 7 instead of level 1. Sung Jinwoo was the first hunter in history to command this many summons simultaneously. But of course, this is nothing compared to what's up ahead. But from all this, at level 51, Sung Jinwoo was most definitely S-Rank. S-Rank. At S-Rank, Sung Jinwoo cleared a red gate. It would take a high-rank party of hunters with an S-Rank several months to do what he did in a week. By swapping his title back to Wolf Assassin, Sung Jinwoo could one-shot an Ice Bear, one of the most notoriously dangerous magical beasts, with his bare hands. And the only reason he didn't use a weapon is because he didn't want to get blood on his new fit. After 5 days, he cleared out 3 different Ice Bear dens, and each of them had at least 20 of the beasts inside. This earned him a level up, several Ice Bear Shadow Soldiers, and Tank, the elite grade Alpha. From their fights against the Ice Bears, his Shadow Soldiers also became stronger. He gained the Night Grade Shadow Iron from an A-rank hunter. After beating the S-rank dungeon boss, he leveled up twice. He also gained the A-rank weapon, Baruka's Dagger. Its base attack was 110 and granted him a plus 10 bonus to agility. Between hunting Ice Bears and Ice Elves, Sung Jinwoo gained 9 levels, which brought him up to level 60. The S-rank Guildmaster, Baek Yunho, realized that he screwed up by confronting Sung Jinwoo afterwards. Because if they were to fight, Yunho knew that he'd at least lose an arm, or maybe even more. And since the guy turns into a beast, Sung Jinwoo would have definitely turned him into a new coat. At this point, the monsters inside C-rank dungeons were like E-rank goblins to him, so he was able to easily complete 9 more dungeons in 2 days and get to level 61. At this point, Sung Jinwoo became more like a mid-tier or above average S-rank hunter. SS-Rank. The unofficial term for this level of power is SS-Rank. The only reason the Hunter Association doesn't bother with it is because their machines can't actually calculate anything beyond A-Rank, which is to say that Sung Jinwoo's sense stat is more accurate than humanity's best mana readers. He cleared 27 floors of the Demon Castle in only 2 days, and gained 6 levels in the process. He left no survivors, and Ruler's Authority leveled up. He made it to floor 50 a day later and gained 2 more levels in the process. By killing the boss Vulcan, he was able to level up 2 more times. The Demon Overlord dropped the S-rank item, Demon Sovereign's Earrings. It gave Sung Jinwoo 20 more points in both Strength and Constitution. From there, Sung Jinwoo became more like a high-rank S-rank hunter. SSS-Rank. On floor 74, Sung Jinwoo killed the boss monster, Metas. His sprint skill leveled up, and he gained 2 levels. He was also awarded 20 stat points, and he finally decided to add to intelligence by putting all of them there. With that, his stats were pretty evenly invested. That's a big deal since even an S rank on his level would normally have some shortcomings. From here on out, Sung Jinwoo decided to keep his stats as balanced as possible. Metas dropped the S rank item, Demon Monarch's Necklace. It gave him 20 points in both agility and intelligence. It also shared a set bonus with his earrings, so all of his stats increased by 5. That's the equivalent of increasing his levels by 5. Inside the A-rank dungeon, Sung Jinwoo leveled up while stealthily wounding the High Orcs. When he openly took them down, he gained another level, and after beating the boss, he gained yet another level. Monarch's Domain became his 3rd job skill. Shadow soldiers fighting within his projected shadow received a 50% bonus to all stats. And visually, this is what caused their coloration to go from blue to purple. He also gained his first Elite Knight grade shadow in the form of Tusk. By now, he could store close to 130 shadow soldiers, and he gained plenty of high orcs. With so many soldiers, he even formed a neighborhood watch and left 3 A-rank high orcs within his sister's shadow. He wore a wind robe and a water ring to keep himself cool inside the scorching demon castle. After one supercharged attack from Tusk, Sung Jinwoo gained 2 levels at once. And when he spread his forces out, he gained 2 more levels. Igris advanced to Elite Knight grade, and Tank advanced to Elite grade. By the time he made it to the 100th floor, Sung Jinwoo's level was 93. In the manhwa version, the Demon King's strength and intelligence stats far exceeded Sung Jinwoo's. And it was thanks to a distraction from Essel that he was able to land the final blow. While in the web novel, Sung Jinwoo fought evenly with the boss. His robe and ring were destroyed. He didn't receive any outside help, and he was truly grateful to the Demon King for everything. But from that fight, he gained 4 levels at once, along with his final job skill, Shadow Exchange. With it, he can switch locations with any of his shadow soldiers once every 3 hours. So now, not even a red gate can contain him. He received 30 stat points for completing the quest, along with the S-rank item, Demon Monarch's Ring. It added 20 points to intelligence and sense. And now that he had all 3 Demon Monarch items, he also gained the second stat bonus, which added 10 points to all of his stats, the equivalent of 10 level ups. And since each of those items added 20 points to a different stat, they're equivalent to 20 levels, plus an additional 20 points to intelligence left over. 35 levels from just 3 items is no joke. Now, Sung Jinwoo was a true exception among S-rank hunters. His power was more like that of a nation-level hunter. Nation level. The hunters of Japan were true elites compared to their Korean counterparts. Sung Jinwoo aside, Cha Hae-in was Korea's strongest hunter. She was on par with Japan's upper ranks, but was far behind their best. Yet Japan's absolute strongest hunter, Goto, couldn't even sense Sung Jinwoo's presence before the guy was close to him. During their sparring match, Goto held nothing back. Sung Jinwoo recognized how high above the other hunters Goto was, but that just made him smile. Sung Jinwoo messed with the top hunter by dodging each of his high-speed attacks by the smallest margins possible. The other S-ranks could barely keep up with their movements. The most Goto was able to do was give Sung Jinwoo a cut on the cheek. And that's only because the guy's murderous intent being picked up by the system caught our boy off guard. If that kept up, the system would force him to kill Japan's strongest hunter. When Sung Jinwoo grabbed Goto's wrist, the Japanese hunter couldn't even make him budge an inch. Cha Hae-in realized that all of this was only possible because Sung Jinwoo's level of abilities were several times greater than that of Goto's. When Sung Jinwoo exuded his aura, it was so crushing that Goto couldn't even breathe. All he could see was death, and nearly wet himself afterwards. On Jeju Island, Baek Yoon-ho was more assured by Sung Jinwoo's presence than over 20 S-rank Japanese hunters combined, and rightfully so. The Ant King easily slaughtered 10 of them with 1 hit each. Goto wasn't even fast enough to lift his arms before losing his head. Meanwhile, Sung Jinwoo willingly let the Ant King punch him in the face with all his might, and the hunter stood firm. Weaker blows than that knocked out the tanky S-rank master of the famed guild and left Cha Hae-in below 10% health. When Sung Jinwoo returned the favor, the Ant King was sent into the wall on the other side of the cavern. That said, Sung Jinwoo was surprised by the ant's durability. His exoskeleton was beyond the bounds of normal organic matter or any known metal. But without a weapon, Sung Jinwoo went blow for blow against the deadly monster. He easily withstood the hits while the Ant King's body continued to crack. Sung Jinwoo's sense stat was so high at this point that he could tell what a monster was feeling even if there was nothing human about them. And the Ant King was scared. After being outmatched in strength, the Ant King resorted to its specialty of speed. But Sung Jinwoo's sharp senses caught each and every movement the monster made. He matched the ant's speed immediately, and exceeded it once he got a good stretch in. Sung Jinwoo revealed the Demon King's daggers. two S-Rank weapons with a base attack of 220. By using both, they each gained extra attack power equal to his strength stat, and that stat was getting close to 250. The Ant King was on the same level as the Demon King, and even exceeded it in some ways. Yet Sung Jinwoo didn't even need the help of his shadows to get the kill. From there, he gained 2 levels. For AoE against a bunch of ants, he used the Demon King's longsword, an S-Rank weapon with a base attack of 350 that creates a persistent lightning storm with each swing. He extracted the Ant King's shadow and welcomed his first general grade shadow soldier, Beru, into the fold. At that level, his shadows were capable of speech, and having Beru also gave him access to the greatest healing ability in the series. He also gained a new battalion of ant soldiers. By taking out every last ant, Sung Jinwoo just barely managed to hit level 100. At this point, his shadow army was strong enough to clear a high-tier A-rank dungeon without him even being there. When orcs threatened his sister's life, Sung Jinwoo didn't even use a weapon. With just the brush of his finger on their flesh, over 20 orcs exploded in the blink of an eye. The orcs, Sung Jinwoo was the real monster. The most difficult of A-rank dungeons had been reduced to being Sung Jinwoo's slaughterhouses. After killing a boss Naga, he gained a level and Jima, another elite knight grade shadow. Now, at level 101, all of his job skills leveled up. At level 2, Shadow Preservation allowed him to share senses with his shadow soldiers. Not even S-Rank hunters were able to notice when he placed a soldier in their shadows, so he could monitor whoever he wanted to at any time. By now, the limit of his army was 840 members. At level 2, the cooldown for Shadow Exchange became 2 hours instead of 3. Because Shadow Extraction leveled up, Jima began at level 13 instead of level 1. It kept the same stats it had while alive, and the boss monster came with a new battalion of Shadow Nagas, which are at the top of the food chain when it comes to A-rank monsters. Sung Jinwoo noticed that while many of his skills had already hit their maximum limit, Tenacity was still at level 1. Because it only activates when his stamina is below 30%, it's never really used. He was way too strong to be backed into a corner like that, so he decided to just give up on improving it. But it was at this stage that Sung Jinwoo finally returned to where it all began, the Double Dungeon. The architect of the system was the strongest enemy Sung Jinwoo had ever faced by far. It was so good at concealing its energy that it was impossible for the hunter to directly sense it. The best he could do was follow its ominous aura. Every sensory receptor in Sung Jinwoo's body awakened to their utmost limits. Physically and mentally, he became fully optimized for the battle. Every cell reacted to the monster's movements. The slightest mistake would cost his life, so he entered the peak state of the agility stat for the first time. But his 8-armed enemy battered him with endless attacks that could each kill a high-ranking hunter. Sung Jinwoo perfectly blocked, deflected, and redirected everything, and still suffered heavy damage. His own blood made seeing from one of his eyes impossible. But with his sense stat being pushed to the extreme, he stepped into a whole new realm that allowed him to accurately read the trajectories of every attack. Each of Sung Jinwoo's stats far exceeded the expectations of the system's creator. When dodging became too much, Sung Jinwoo only avoided the attacks that would be fatal and ignored the rest. He was moving so fast that his blood and sweat evaporated from the sheer heat his movements generated. After the architect gave up, Sung Jinwoo experienced one of the original Shadow Monarch's memories. It was then that he gained the Black Heart. Black Heart. The memory Sung Jinwoo experienced included the defeat of the true king of demons, the Monarch of White Flames. This earned him the title Demon Hunter. Thanks to that, Sung Jinwoo gained another heart of magical energy. With each beat, powerful surges of energy flow throughout his entire body. It gives him an extra 100,000 mana. Before then, he only had about 9,000. With this, he now had enough power to almost endlessly regenerate his shadow soldiers. He was overflowing with vitality. Even when holding back his speed, each of Sung Jinwoo's steps felt light and airy. It didn't physically change his flesh at all. In fact, although he could feel it beating, it was completely undetectable otherwise. In the web novel, Sung Jinwoo was able to focus its power into his hand and lift the buried remains of almost 20 hunters with ruler's authority at the same time. When he fought the giants, Sung Jinwoo killed 13 on his own while his army handled the rest. Since each of them was on par with a boss monster and could even devour an S rank, he gained 7 levels in a flash, not to mention 29 shadow giants. After taking down an especially big giant, he gained 4 more levels. When he killed Legia, the Monarch of the Beginning, he gained so many points that the system had to take its time to count them up. From one monster, he gained a whopping 8 levels. He was now level 122, and undoubtedly the strongest hunter in the world. The strongest hunter. When Jin-ho was taken and beaten within an inch of his life, Sung Jinwoo's rage was as boundless as his power. The entire Shadow Army trembled. Even Beru's mind froze up. Sung Jinwoo took down 2 S-rank hunters in a flash, but he sure took his time beating down Hwang Dong-soo. The magical energy he released was enough to completely shroud his S-rank prey. For the nation-level hunter Thomas Andre, even taking a step in the direction of Sung Jinwoo's ominous aura was like walking through a swamp. Sung Jinwoo easily outsped and brutalized the Supreme Hunter. It was the first time the Goliath had spat out blood since becoming a hunter. Yet even a direct breath attack from Kamish, the dragon known as humanity's greatest calamity, didn't leave a single scratch on him. Thomas Andre was known for having the most absurd destructive power amongst hunters. But instead of running, Sung Jinwoo attacked faster and harder. While Thomas Andre missed, Sung Jinwoo targeted his vitals repeatedly. The #1 hunter in the world was no match for Sung Jinwoo, who wasn't even going for the kill and didn't suffer any damage in the process. There isn't a single hunter who would be remotely capable of doing that. And this all happened while the Shadow Army took down the Scavenger Guild's elite hunters. And they're not just the top hunters in America, but one of the top guilds in the entire world. And they were all defeated without a single life being taken besides Hwang Dong-soo's. And as for him, Sung Jinwoo brought him into the fold as a general grade shadow, Greed. Sung Jinwoo subtly placed shadows with about 500 of the top hunters in the world from nearly 120 countries. This gave him access to an unknown, unrivaled, and conventionally unstoppable information network. He was already stronger than the Monarch of Frost, but the insidious Ice Elf played dirty and managed to run away. Sung Jinwoo was now level 133, with all of his stats being close to 300. This was thanks to his soldiers also working in Japan. To thank him for sparing the lives of the Scavenger Guild, Thomas Andre gifted Sung Jinwoo with the undefined rarity weapon, Kamish's Wrath. This pair of daggers boasted a whopping base attack stat of 1,500. They were forged by a master craftsman from the late dragon Kamish's sharpest fang. Due to their mana sensitivity, their power increased in proportion to their wielder. And in the web novel, their weight could be changed at will, weighing several tons or being as light as a feather. They were by far the strongest magical weapons in the world. Also in the web novel, Sung Jinwoo decided to focus on leveling up Beru and Igris ahead of their impending clash with the Monarchs. The 3 of them spread out and cleared 40 dungeons in a day. At the maximum level for a general grade soldier, Beru even wanted to try fighting Thomas Andre himself. But although he was curious as to how that would play out, Sung Jinwoo didn't want to see the hunter get hurt. And even though Beru can be regenerated, he doesn't like seeing the ant be destroyed. Which is to say that Sung Jinwoo's strongest minion was on par, or even stronger, than the previous strongest hunter. In the manhwa, Sung Jinwoo sparred with an all-out Beru who couldn't so much as touch him, which was a lot cooler and made much more sense than the random tree monster they used in the web novel. But for as strong as he was by now, getting jumped by 4 monarchs at once was too much to handle. While Sung Jinwoo was busy with the Monarch of Frost, the Monarch of Fangs blindsided him and delivered a fatal wound. But like the old days, Sung Jinwoo managed to get back on his feet thanks to a full status recovery. He was even strong enough to kill the Monarch of Plagues in the midst of all the chaos. But at the same time, his Shadow Army was frozen and ended up becoming a liability to his mana supply. Sung Jinwoo managed to move a bit faster than the full power Monarch of Frost, But it turned out to be an opening for the Monarch of Fangs yet again. The King of Beasts pierced his heart, and the King of Snowfolk added his dagger for good measure, even going as far as to freeze the strongest hunter over. That's when Sung Jinwoo's mortal life and time as a player came to an end. True Shadow Monarch. In death, Sung Jinwoo met the original Shadow Monarch and learned the truth about his power. The system was made to cultivate a suitable vessel for the Shadow Monarch. He and Ashborn became one and the same. Now with the unrestricted power of the Shadow Monarch, Sung Jinwoo no longer needed the system. Once the limitations were lifted, Igris regained his true power and Beru's stats were greatly enhanced. The moment the Monarch of Fang sensed the shift in Sung Jinwoo's aura, he ran away with his tail tucked. And the Monarch of Frost didn't understand why he ran until he saw the difference for himself. With a bit of concentration, Sung Jinwoo could expand his senses to the entire planet and pinpoint the energy signature he was looking for. His ability to perceive became so great that he could effectively pause the world around him. He now understood Ruler's authority in a much more profound way. Instead of being like an invisible hand, it's more like invisible mana that moves according to his will. Now he could detect the flow of mana and properly wield it. Sung Jinwoo could create violent storms of mana around him. He easily teleported to the Monarch of Fangs and took the beast down with only 4 attacks. Then he easily did the same to the Monarch of Frost, who didn't last nearly as long. After that, Sung Jinwoo inherited 130,000 members of the original Shadow Army, and they were led by the strongest shadow in existence, the Grand Marshal, Bellion. Sung Jinwoo gained the power to share memories like his predecessor had, and could impart them with just a touch. He could even create gates at will. He and the Monarch of Destruction shared such incredible senses that they could transcend distance itself to glare at each other. As the true King of the Dead, Sung Jinwoo could now create perfect shadow soldiers at will. In fact, they were now far stronger than they were in life. He added tens of thousands of shadow soldiers to his army in a matter of minutes. He could release a dark aura with each of his attacks. By relying on his senses over logical thinking, Sung Jinwoo could transcend the limits of human anatomy to be like a machine meant to only kill and destroy. After he absorbed Kamish's runestone, he gained the skill Dragon's Fear. The cruelest dragon skill allowed him to plunge every being weaker than himself into a state of pure despair. But since it would impact his forces too, he had to be away from them. Now that the system was gone, Sung Jinwoo couldn't access the store. But he now had the ability to fabricate items himself. For now, he could manage to make clothes and armor, which is something that he took to the next level with his next form, Spiritual Body. Sung Jinwoo used the power of darkness to create a massive armored form. Black lightning violently surrounded his entire body. By doing this, he literally summoned the power of death itself, something that should have been impossible for a human. But as someone who spent a long time between life and death, Sung Jinwoo's control was incredible. His ability to do this gave the Monarch of Destruction a reason to admire his opponent, along with the acknowledgement that Sung Jinwoo is way too dangerous. His body became darkness itself and moved according to his will. It allowed him to match the Monarch of Destruction's strength, but this large form requires an unimaginable amount of stamina, so not even Sung Jinwoo can maintain it for long. Kamish's wrath was destroyed, so Sung Jinwoo used his father's dagger instead. At this stage, he just barely managed to beat the Monarch of Destruction thanks to superior tactics and a bit of help from the rulers. But Sung Jinwoo was not satisfied with how things turned out, so the rulers granted his wish to go back in time and change things for the better. Young Monarch. Sung Jinwoo went back in time and was a kid again. His whole family was healthy and together. Before going off to save the world all over again, Sung Jinwoo enjoyed being a normal kid for a little while. Then he spent 27 years between dimensions, killing all of the other monarchs and their armies. He killed every monster that would have ever come to Earth. This time, he didn't hesitate to go head-to-head against the Monarch of Destruction at the very end. On Earth, only 2 years passed. Sung Jinwoo was able to control his form to keep himself looking like a middle schooler. The Shadow Army now had over 10 million soldiers. As the only remaining monarch, not even the rulers could tell him what to do. Sung Jinwoo could create weapons even stronger than Kamish's wrath at will. When intergalactic titans invaded Earth and wanted to eat it, Sung Jinwoo gained even more shadow soldiers. Besides that, he lived a mostly normal life. Monarch of Destruction. In an alternate reality, the Monarch of Destruction woke up in Sung Jinwoo's body. He could quickly locate someone on the other side of the city just by focusing on their voice. He absolutely slaughtered the monsters inside the dungeon. Inside the double dungeon, he saved all the humans from dying. The statue's incinerating beams that would have harmed Sung Jinwoo at even level 122 was laughable to this guy. His destruction breath destroyed the main statue immediately. He tore through every statue in the room. Then he defeated the architect in one blow. From there, he fought the Monarch of Shadows in a climactic final battle. And this all seems to have been over the course of a previous timeline. Ghost. In adulthood, Sung Jinwoo became a detective. He gained the nickname Ghost, and he used his powers to solve tough cases and keep the streets clean. He pretty much becomes the world's one and only superhero. And when the law wasn't enough, Sung Jinwoo would send the worst offenders to Beru and the Ants. Shadow Father. Sung Jinwoo had a son with Cha Hae-in. He had to form a barrier to keep her alive during pregnancy since the kid inherited his power. He suppressed his son's memories of the Shadow Army so he'd be able to live a normal life. Meanwhile, he continued to be a senior detective. But when his son Suho got older, Sung Jinwoo created a revised version of the system that would guide him. He oversaw his son's growth and accepted him as his eventual successor. Multiversal Monarch. Because the universe no longer has a supreme being, the supreme beings from other universes have begun their invasion. Sung Jinwoo is currently fighting gods from different realities and their infinite armies. The world doesn't know about his existence, and it's up to his son to protect Earth while he wages war across the multiverse. And those are all of Sung Jinwoo's forms. Let us know your favorite version of him in the comments. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.